I want you to watch this. If you can, bring family members and friends around too. It's just very important to understand what's happening to our country. There's a reason why we see thousands of people in the streets. Where they come from, you're going to find out. They're carrying the flags of Hamas, Islamic Jihad, the Muslim Brotherhood, Hezbollah, even ISIS. Why isn't the FBI doing something about this? Why don't we have a special unit or a special organization within our government to track down this money, to stop the funding, to go after these entities and these organizations? Pray to God that when Donald Trump's elected, we can do exactly that. You know, one of the groups that Kamala Harris is relying on for votes is the Islamist group. Now, who are Islamists? I separate them from Muslims per se. Islamists are individuals who hate the West, who hate other Muslims who don't agree with their viewpoints, that is terrorism and radicalism. They hate the Jews the most, they hate Christians, they hate America. And I try to explain and use this format and my others that this mentality wants to destroy the United States of America. They're in our country now, the border's open. During the last 18 to 24 months of the Obama administration, they were allowing people from the Middle East to pour into this country. You know, fundamental transformation. Our universities and colleges are loaded with these people. They focus on the students. They focus on the faculty. Hamas has funding networks inside the United States. But the key is, who's funding Hamas? Qatar is funding Hamas. And yet this administration treats Qatar like their friends, and quite frankly, Republicans do too. Why? They've bought and paid all these special interests, all these lobbyists in Washington, D.C. Our biggest base in the Middle East isn't in Israel. It's not even in Jordan. It's in Qatar. Meanwhile, Qatar funds Hamas. Qatar has an alliance with Iran. Al Jazeera, which is a propaganda operation, is owned by Qatar. It's a very dangerous country. It's a tiny country that happens to have been founded on a, you know, as usual, infinite amount of oil. Bunch of inbreds. Qatar never existed before. They created it out of whole cloth, the way they created Kuwait and Saudi Arabia and these other countries. They, first the Ottomans and then the British. But all that said, we better, as a people in this country, as Americans, pay attention to what the hell's going on here. I'm going to show you a video that most of you have never seen before by an organization you never heard of before. I never heard of them before, but I will follow them now. Canary Mission. Canary Mission, what is their mission? You can look it up yourselves. To fight hate against the United States and in the United States, and hate against Israel and the Israelis, and hate against the Jews. I want you to watch this video. If you can, bring family members and friends around too. You can always rerun it. It's just very important to understand what's happening to our country. There's a reason why we see thousands of people in the streets. Where they come from, you're going to find out. They're carrying the flags of Hamas, Islamic Jihad, the Muslim Brotherhood, Hezbollah, even ISIS. Now, obviously, that mentality doesn't work very well in a constitutional republic where we have a First Amendment and free speech, freedom of assembly, and so forth and so on. And again, this is being funded by all these terrorist groups here in the United States. And so I ask myself, why isn't the FBI doing something about this? Why don't we have a special unit or a special organization within our government to track down this money, to stop the funding, to go after these entities and these organizations? And I'm hoping when President Trump is elected, God willing, did you vote early yet? If you didn't, you're not stepping up to the plate. My whole family has voted early now. This is crucially important. Please vote now and help other people go out and vote. Anyway, I'm hoping, pray to God that when Donald Trump's elected, we can do exactly that. Go through these student visas, go through the temporary visas, remove these people, go through these colleges and universities, not to purify what's taking place. That's what they've done with us. But if they have tenured individuals who are preaching terrorism in this country, They need to be removed. And also, they shouldn't be getting federal funds. There's so many things that we can do that we need to do to protect our country. The Democrat Party's thrown in with this crowd. The Democrat Party defends it. And when you see this video, I think your eyes are going to pop out of your heads, even though you know what's going on. When you see this video, ask yourselves this: why is Kamala Harris trying to get the vote of these people? Because she agrees with them. Obama agrees with them. Many of the people they've brought into the government, so-called political appointees, they agree with them. This administration is populated by people who hate this country and hate Israel. And as I've told you many times, if you hate America, you hate Israel. If you hate Israel, you hate America. Because we share the same principles and morals and ethics and Bible. May I say that? Is that okay? But anyway, let's take a look, and then I'll comment further. I'm not going to interrupt this because I want you to see it straight through, and the narrator does a fabulous job. Go.
I caution you of the days to come, because they will not be easy. There are people among us today who might not be with us next year at this conference. And this is the reality, because the liberation struggle requires sacrifice, and I know everyone here is prepared to make that sacrifice.
In May 2024, over 100 organizations gathered for the People's Conference for Palestine in Detroit, Michigan. More than 3,000 activists were in attendance. Speakers celebrated the October 7th massacre, called for resistance against the West, and mapped out a vision for the destruction of America from within.
The Palestinians who came to the United States understood their role immediately upon arrival.
We, the movement for Palestine in North America and across the world, are here to fight until victory.
This violent movement has been growing for decades. It's made up of groups including, within our lifetime, Students for Justice in Palestine, the Palestinian Youth Movement, and many others. After the October 7th attacks, anti-Israel groups in America were emboldened. They saw the massacre as an opportunity to intensify hostility toward Jews and America.
When I think about the USF, it should burn! Death to America!
Stop. I said I wouldn't interrupt. I lied. Understand, this is all happening in the United States. In the United States. Go ahead.
As the movement worked nonstop to legitimize the Hamas attack, the activists openly flaunted their hatred of Jews and Israel through protests, vandalism, encampments, and violent assaults, both in the streets and on college campuses. Flags of terror organizations became commonplace in public spaces. The influence of these violent groups is growing, and they are working towards their goal of dismantling America.
Our struggle is a long struggle, and one that stands on the shoulders of thousands of martyrs and thousands of fighters who have committed and who are committing their lives to lay the ground for the revolution we see ahead of us today.
Gaza tells us to escalate for it. That can mean so many different things, but what I will tell you is we need to start sacrificing.
The threat of violence is not theoretical. In this war of resistance, all Americans are potential targets. These organizations are determined to achieve their revolution, whatever the cost, by any means necessary.
Resistance, by any means necessary.
If the enemy refuses to die, it must be killed.
There is only one solution!
The Palestinian diaspora in North America has committed its martyrs for this cause.
Students have brought the war home.
It is either victory or death.
Either victory or death.
They're losing their ability to control us. And this means that now the gloves are off, and quite frankly, anything is possible.
canarymission.org. I hope that got your attention. This is going on, and you know, this is 1/1000% of what's taking place under the radar that we don't know, in the shadows, the funding mechanisms, the organizations that are involved. Again, the mix of the Marxists and the Islamists, and you saw some of that, as a matter of fact. And what's also troubling is the vast majority of people in Washington, D.C. have no idea what we're up against here. They have no idea what we're up against here. It is starting to metastasize. Like any cancer, if you don't deal with it right away, it will metastasize and it will kill the body, in this case, the body politic. And I think it's fair to say that many of our Ivy League schools and other schools have now been basically taken over by this element. And you could hear what they say. They call America the empire, the empire, the empire, the empire. They have their words down, their language. And of course, you heard them say explicitly, talking about willing to do anything and needing to do anything. This is going to be a huge problem, because what's happening on our southern border right now, on our northern border too, but significantly on the southern border, we're letting people into this country who are going to join these movements. In fact, people are being brought into this country because they're being sent to this country to inflame these movements, to support these movements. It's just appalling to me that so little's been done about it. Can you imagine 4 years of Kamala Harris with this going on? She surrounded herself with so many people who think like this. And she has supported the re-election of Tlaib, the re-election of Omar, and people of that ilk. Her attacks on Benjamin Netanyahu is because she is playing to the Islamists, to the violent, hateful Islamists who want to overthrow our country. That's why this campaign is so important. They run around talking about Donald Trump's against democracy, Donald Trump this, Donald Trump or that. Donald Trump is the only one that's going to be able to stop this right now. He's the candidate.
For all this and much more, sign up for Levin TV.